Welcome to Pollinator Live, a distance learning adventure. My name is Tamberly Conway, and I'll be your host for today's program. I work for the USDA Forest Service as a conservation education specialist. The Forest Service manages approximately 193 million acres of national forest and grasslands throughout the nation, and that's about the size of Texas. Today, we're here at the Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center in Austin, Texas. So a big Texas-sized welcome and howdy, y'all. Also, a big thank you to the Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center for having us here today. And to prove that everything is bigger in Texas, the biggest bee on the block is here to represent all of our native pollinators. Welcome, Forest Service Safety Bee. Thousands of students are watching this program live, and we welcome you all. Pollinator Live is encouraging students and adults to get outside, learn about pollinators, become citizen scientists, and create pollinator habitats by planting native plants and vegetable gardens. In May of last year, we came to you with a program from the National Zoo in Washington, D.C. called An Insect Zoo in Your Schoolyard. In September, we were at the National Arboretum, also located in Washington, D.C., about a program called Native Bees, Honeybees, and Gardening and more. You can buzz in at any time to watch all of those programs to the web address on your screen. Today, we'll be continuing this distance learning adventure with Pollinator Live. Later on in this broadcast and webcast, we'll hold this whole program in Spanish, so our Spanish-speaking audience from the U.S., Mexico, and Central and South America will be joining us then. Now, we'll be taking your questions throughout the day, so buzz in to the email address on your screen. It's also Environmental Education Week, so you're joining millions of people out there celebrating environmental education. You can go to the web address on your screen as well to find out more about EE Week. Now, as you buzz in, many questions will be answered throughout the day by a panel of experts, and they'll answer those by email, while some of your questions will be answered live at the end of this program. Today, we're going to be learning about the partnership among plants, pollinators, and people, how pollinators play such an important role in food production, the parts of a plant, how pollinators do their work, and how you can be a friend to pollinators. We're here today at the beautiful Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center in Austin, Texas, during the peak of the spring wildflower season. Lady Bird Johnson, the wife of President Lyndon B. Johnson, was a passionate supporter of wildflowers and native plants. She recognized the importance many years ago that this country was losing its native landscapes. She helped to establish this center to preserve and restore the beauty and biological richness of the U.S. Approximately 30% of the world's native plants are at risk of extinction, so the work here at the Lady Bird Johnson is extremely important. The Wildflower Center of the University of Austin in Texas is a great place to learn about pollinators, plants, and even people and that partnership. Now, during our program, we're going to be testing your knowledge about pollinators by playing a game called the Pollinator Bee. 4 times during this program, we'll be asking a question and you can submit your answers. If you're watching a webcast, you can go to your computer and the questions and the possible answers will be right there on that web page where you're viewing the program. If you're watching on television, you'll need to go to the web address on your screen to participate. You'll have a couple of minutes to swarm in with your answer, and then we'll show you the percentage of classrooms out there that get the question right. Now, you want to pay close attention so that you can be the best you can be in the Pollinator Bee. Now, let's test your knowledge and begin the Pollinator Bee. Now, this might be interesting for you to guess. The first question is, how many species of insects are there in the world? A, 4,000 to 5,000, B, 9,000 to 10,000, C, 400,000 to 500,000, or D, 1 to 1.5 million. Okay, we'll be back in a few minutes to share the answers to the first Pollinator Bee question. Hey, Safety Bee, so what's all this buzz about pollination? What is it? Why does it matter? Can you see pollination, feel it, or taste it? Well, sometimes you can see pollen. This is actually pollen. It looks like liquid. Sometimes you can see it in the spring when you see this greenish yellow film on a car or a pond or maybe even another surface or maybe even on your shoes whenever you're walking through the forest or in an open field. And you may have allergies. Some people might sneeze. And you know, pollen grains are very, very small grains, like fine dust to the naked eye. But under a microscope, these are knobby and textured and just really spiked. And this might actually cause a tickle in your nose. But all of those textures also help the pollen to make it to their final flower connections. So how does pollination work exactly? Well, the bug chicks are here to help us understand pollination in this short video. Show us your flower power, girls. Let's watch.
Now, we're throwing around the word pollination a lot, but let's talk for a second about what most people think pollination is.
I'll do that. Pollination is like when there's lots of flowers, right? And the flowers have this like dusty stuff on it called pollen, and then like bugs, ew, come around and the bugs like eat the pollen and like roll around in it, and then that's pollination.
Whoa, 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 whoa. I need an illustration, and I need it bug chick style.
Yeah.
Parts of a flower. You've got the pretty petals, the sticky stigma, pipe-like pistil, skinny stamen, and the awesome anthers. That's where the pollen is. Now we need a pollinator. Ooh, can we have a fly? Oh, that's a housefly. Ooh, a bee fly, perfect. Flowers smell yummy to attract insects. Bee fly lands on the petals to drink nectar. He brushes up against an anther and pollen gets all over his fuzzy body. He flies away, but he's still hungry, so it's off to another flower. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The pollen on his body gets stuck to the stigma of the new flower. The pollen grains travel down the pistil to the ovary where a seed will be formed. Seeds are baby plants. That seed will grow into a new flower. And that's pollination.
All of that information about pollination is interesting, but what does it matter? Why do I need to care about pollination or bees or insects or any of that?
Bees and insects are so gross. Wouldn't the world be better without all the buzzing and creepy crawling insects? I wish they'd just all disappear.
What good are insects anyways? Who cares? But it's getting close to lunchtime, and we're here at the farmer's market. Let's buy something to go with our sandwiches, and I might even get some bananas for tomorrow. I just saw this video about pollination, but I don't need to worry about that, do I? I just want some fruit to go with my sandwich, so can I have some apples, please?
Well, if you really don't care about pollinators, then you can't have this apple. The apple is pollinated by bees, you know.
No way. I didn't know that. So bees pollinated all those apples? Wow.
Okay, just give us some strawberries, and those strawberries look really good.
Sorry, no strawberries either. Strawberries are pollinated by bees also.
Oh my. Well, it'd be nice to have some fresh, juicy tomatoes.
No, you can't have any tomatoes either because tomatoes are pollinated by bumblebees, so you can't have any tomatoes for your sandwich.
You seem to know a lot about this. I know. Why don't you give me a bunch of bananas? I love bananas, and I know they're really healthy.
Bananas are actually pollinated by bats, and bats are very important to the tropical ecosystem, so no bananas for you either, buddy.
No bananas?
Oh, this is getting difficult.
If you want a world without pollinators, you have to realize that you won't be able to eat raspberries, blueberries, and other fruits and vegetables, because these fruits and vegetables are all pollinated by bees. Potatoes, eggplants, and lettuce and tomato and lettuce is also pollinated by other bees and insects. So if you really want chocolate, you can't even have chocolate because chocolate is pollinated by little midges that pollinate the cocoa trees, and the cocoa trees make the chocolate. So no chocolate for you either.
Well, what can we eat then?
Well, you can have some grains are pollinated by wind and not insects, so you can have some bread.
Well, even if I had bread, I'd need something to go with it. So what about this honey? Oh, wait. Bees make that yummy stuff. Maybe a world without pollinators wouldn't be so sweet after all.
Hey, Jacob and Zoe, haven't you heard? Scientists have discovered that 1 out of every 3 bites of food that we eat comes to us as the result of pollinators. So I think that pollinators are really pretty important and play a critical role in providing all of these awesome fruits and vegetables that we love to eat and also that help to keep us healthy.
That's incredible. Now I realize how important it is to help out pollinators if I want to eat fresh fruits and vegetables. What can I do to help?
Well, Jacob, if you just stay with us during the program, you'll learn so much about pollination, about pollinators from our experts and also our student scientists who are here with us today. And you'll also learn so much more about what you can do to help pollinators. We've been working with some student scientists from Joslyn Elementary, learning about pollinators. Today, they're continuing their study here at the Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center. Ramiro Villalbazo, who is a forest supervisor with the U.S. Forest Service, will be leading this first group of students out in the field today. Ramiro, what are you and the students going to be doing out there?
Hello, Tamberly, and hello, everyone out there. I'm here with the Pollinator Patrol. They are Samantha, Tyrone, Allie, and Brianna. We are going to be going out to the field to look at plants and their pollinators. We will be looking for insects and other animals like hummingbirds who are pollinators. We will record their behavior and notice what shrubs, flowers, and trees they like to visit and land on. Also, we will be observing flower colors, shapes, and scents, and recording what we find. We will be using these cool field books to gather our information. Tamberly, as you know, science is the process of using all of our senses to learn about the natural world. By doing this, we develop and test our hypothesis about our observations and develop new ones. So now, my scientific friends, it is very important that we do an outstanding job at observing as we begin our journey to learn about pollinators. You with me?
Yeah!
Right. Back to you, Tamberly.
Thanks, Ramiro. I'm really curious to see what all of you are going to find out there today in the gardens. So we'll be checking back with you later to see what Ramiro and the Pollinator Patrol discovered out there. Later, pollinators. Now, let me introduce Chelsea Corcoran-Quat, who is an environmental educator and biologist with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. She's with some students from Joslyn Elementary in another part of the garden. Chelsea, can you tell us what you're going to be doing out there?
Tamberly, our student scientists today are going to be observing 2 patches of flowers here at the Color Gardens. Now, many citizen science activities involve making observations of pollinators and then submitting the results. So today we have the busy bees, Jacob and Daquam, and they're going to be observing these bluebonnet flowers right here. Now, if you take a look, these bluebonnets have a tubular shape, which are great for pollinators to just sneak in and pollinate. And over here we have the painted ladies, Sadie and Chloe, and they're going to be observing these cone flowers here. Now, if you notice these flowers, they have that broad platform, which is a great thing for pollinators to just come in and land right on. Now, we're going to be using a very similar observation sheet that the Pollinator Patrol is using, and we're going to be testing a hypothesis that's based on previous information that's been given. Now, busy bees, what do you guys hypothesize is going to happen with these blue bonnets here?
We totally think that it will attract more bees than butterflies.
These are going to totally attract more bees than butterflies? All right. And let's see, painted ladies, what do you guys hypothesize is going to happen here with these cone flowers?
We totally think that there are going to be more more butterflies attracted than bees.
More butterflies attracted to bees? All right, well, we've got a little competition going on. That's great. We're excited to see what we might find out and what other pollinators we might see in the process. Back to you, Tamberly.
Awesome, Blossom. Thanks, Chelsea. I look forward to seeing what you and the busy bees and the painted ladies are going to find out. We look forward to hearing your results. Okay, now let's get back to the pollinator bee. We're going to give you the results to the first question. 77% of you answered the question correctly. Great job. Give me a high five. The correct answer was D. There are approximately 1 to 1.5 million insect species in the world, but scientists are finding new insects every day. So that number may be much higher, almost 4 million. So now we're going to go to the next question. Are you ready? The reason that pollinators are so important is because A, they help produce all of our food. B, they help produce 1 out of every 3 bites of food we eat. C, they help produce only 10% of the food we eat. Or D, they're not important at all. So you can go to the website and swarm in with your answers to the web address on your screen. And the questions and the possible answers will be there for you. Also, let me remind you that we're answering questions live by email today, and then also later on during the program, at the end of the program, some of your questions will be answered live by our experts on site. So you can go to that website on your screen. So we've learned about pollination and why it's important. Plants and pollinators are partners. But what is it about plants that make them so interesting to pollinators? Have you ever noticed the fantastic differences in the shape, color, and smell of flowers? Some flowers are bold and vibrant, while others are modest and drab. Some are shaped like trumpets, while others have a landing platform. Some are simple and open, while others have tricky, convoluted mazes. While people enjoy the beauty and fragrances of flowers, their real job of flowers is to ensure that plants produce offspring or seeds, which will in turn produce more plants. Let me introduce to you Flo Oxley, who's the Director of Plant Conservation at the Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center. Flo is here to show us this amazing garden. And as I said, we're here at the Wildflower Center, and everyone knows what a flower is, but Flo, what is a wildflower?
Tamberly, a wildflower is any plant that grows without the help of humans.
And can you define for us the difference between a plant and a native plant?
You bet. Native plants evolved over thousands of years in a particular area. They've adapted to the climate and to the habitat, the rainfall, and that's where their ancestors originated without the help of humans. Now, plants are often considered to be native in a particular region in the United States if they were here before the Europeans first arrived. Now, people often take their plants with them when they move because they're pretty, they're useful. Wheat, for example, which is a very important agricultural crop, is not native to the U.S. Native plants, however, function as hosts. They provide food, shelter, and habitat for the native wildlife in their home ecosystems. That's very, very important because plants and wildlife have interacted for millions and millions of years. Wildlife can actually recognize those native plants based on their usefulness to them. So pollinators and their plants function in a very mutually beneficial way. Wildlife, they really don't interact with non-native plants. They have no function in the new ecosystem other than taking up space, using soil, water, and nutrients that native plants might be using. Now, non-native plants can cause problems. They tend to choke out native plants and, worst of all, may not provide food or habitat for wildlife. Non-natives also have different flowering times, so the pollinators may not have pollen and sugars that they need. The timing is just a little bit off. Non-native plants also don't provide the colors, the sugars, and the aromas that attract those native pollinators.
Well, I know students out there understand that some animals are endangered, but what about plants?
Well, Tamberly, just like animals, a lot of plants are endangered due to habitat loss, those new plants and animals that are coming in to the region, and the big one now, climate change. And students in the audience probably know about plants that are endangered where they live. But don't forget, okay, a lot of animals are endangered because they're losing their habitat. And what forms habitat? Plants. But keep in mind, plants have to have certain kinds of habitat to survive too. Now, one obvious difference between plants and animals is that animals can move. They can just get up and move out of a place. And that's why, and plants can't. And that's why pollinators are so important. They give plants a way to move.
So that helps us to come back to that really important partnership between plants and pollinators. May we take a quick look at some of the parts of plants and flowers that attract our pollinators?
You bet. Come on, Tamberly, let's go take a peek at the flowers.
Excellent. Ooh, this is a visualizer. We're going to see up close and personal.
All right, now, plants have all of the parts that they need to attract pollinators, okay? And most plants have 4 parts. The first part are these green, sort of leaf-like structures that are called sepals, and they function to protect the developing flower bud. As you move in, you get to the pretty parts. This is the part that's really important because different pollinators are attracted to different colors and different kinds of petals. Moving further in, you're going to find these structures right here, which are called stamen. And stamen have a really long filament, or in some plants it can be really short, and they're topped by an anther in which the pollen is produced. And then finally, typically in the middle of the plant, we have the pistil. And there's 3 parts to the pistil. You've got a sticky stigma, a long neck, or sometimes a short neck, and that's attached right here to the base, which is called the ovary, and that's where the seeds are made. Animal plants, pollinated plants, typically have big pollen grains with lots of tiny hooks, spines, and craters. That rough texture makes it really, really easy for them to stick to animal hair, scales, and feathers, and they'll stay on until that animal goes to another flower and they get rubbed off. So the pollen is rubbed off at the next flower. It's pollination.
Excellent. That's really interesting to see the parts of a flower, but now can we take a look at some of the flowers in your garden to see the types of flowers that attract pollinators?
Absolutely. Let's come on over here. This right here is a really nice plant called phlox. Nice big landing platform that you'd expect bees would really, really like, okay? Because they're lazy pollinators. They like to sit while they sip their nectar. Other plants, which bloom at night, are kind of white in color and they have a really great odor, so they can attract their pollinators, which are things like bats and moths. Now, wind-pollinated plants, they don't rely on living organisms to move pollen around. What happens is they're at the risk of the wind. That's really random pollination, and things aren't always guaranteed.
Well, Flo, that was plantastic. Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much for sharing that important pollinator partnership between plants and pollinators. And now, let's visit the bug chicks again. They're going to explain how plants and pollinators are such incredible partners. Let's watch.
This episode is about mutualism.
It's the word of the day.
Mutualism is when 2 organisms benefit or get something good from their relationship with one another.
Sometimes it's so intense that they need each other to survive. It's a partnership with a delicate balance. And if that relationship gets messed up, well, you get the idea.
Mutualism is everywhere in nature, but some plants and their pollinators are the most extreme.
Since we are the bug chicks, we decided to focus on one type of insect-plant mutualism, the yucca plant and the yucca moth.
But we live far away from yucca habitat, and it's not yucca moth season, so we decided to recreate it for you.
A little pollination theater in the desert. First, we need a yucca moth. These moths are the only insect that pollinate yucca plants. It's a huge responsibility, and she takes her job very seriously. First, she finds some yucca pollen and rolls it into a little ball. She sticks it under her chin and flies to the next flower. Now she lays an egg inside the ovary of the second flower and actually shoves the pollen ball into the stigma. This way she makes sure the flower is pollinated and will produce a yucca fruit.
The seeds inside are what my larvae eat after they hatch. It eats about 1/3 of the seeds. This way, it gets food but also leaves enough seeds to grow new yucca plants. Genius! Once the larva is full, it chews its way out of the fruit, falls to the ground, and burrows into the soil to pupate. The pupae can stay underground for up to 3 years before emerging as an adult moth to start the cycle all over again.
The moth must pollinate the yucca in order to provide fruit for her offspring, and the yucca plant needs the moth in order to reproduce. If one disappears, the other won't survive. The yucca plant and the yucca moth only really rely on each other, but there are some organisms that are vital for the health of a whole ecosystem. They're called keystone species.
So really, lots of pollinating insects are like keystone species. They help plants all over the world to reproduce and to create food. Right. And seeing is believing. Without pollinators, carrots, cucumbers, zucchini, chili peppers, bell peppers, cauliflower, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, apples, oranges, lemons, papayas, mangoes, kiwi, coconut, tangerine, plums, raspberries, blueberries, blackberries, all the fixins on your burger, the tomato sauce on your pasta, cocoa and chocolate, vanilla and strawberry, your favorite foods, gone. If the plants don't reproduce, that means the soil has no nutrients, which means the trees won't grow, which means we'll have no oxygen, and we can't breathe. If we save the pollinators, we save the world. Okay, we're being a little dramatic. But you can do your part to ensure a healthy future for pollinators. You can be a superhero for pollinators, create gardens, help preserve native habitat, and get involved with citizen science programs. Because pollinators need our help, and we need them. You could say that we need each other to survive, which brings us right back to the word of the day, mutualism. Nice. Thanks.
Thanks, bug chicks. Nature is amazing. When we look closely, we can see that plants and pollinators are truly partners. Now it's time to get back to our pollinator bee. We have the answer to question 2, and 71% of you answered the question correctly. Great job out there. All right, now the correct answer is B. All right, the one reason why pollinators are so important is because they help produce 1 out of every 3 bites of food that we eat. Thanks everyone out there for your responses. Now we're going to ask the third question. Are you ready? The question is, butterflies prefer flowers with broad petals that provide a landing area that are large and showy and that provide nectar. Is it A, true, or B, false? Okay, now you can respond by buzzing in to the web address on your screen. And we'll come back to question 3 later. You'll be able to see the possible answers right there on your screen, so good luck. Okay, so now we've talked about pollination and plants, and we've learned a lot about pollinators. Let's check in with our student scientist team, the Pollinator Patrol, with Ramiro, and who is the Chief Insect Inspector in our Pollinator Patrol. What did you all find out there?
Hello, Tamberly. We identified which pollinators landed on what plants and recorded it in our field books. And we looked at details to help us understand how plants and pollinators work together. Pollinator partners, if you will.
Absolutely, that's pollinator-rific. Now, can you all share some of the equipment that you use while you're out there in the field?
Yes, my scientific friends, what did we use out there?
A data sheet and field guides.
Very good.
Magnifying glass and pencils.
Yes.
Hats and water.
Very important.
Camera and sunscreen.
Very good. So there you have it. That's what we do out there.
Sounds like fun stuff to me.
You know what? Science is exploration, and we need all this equipment to help us and also to protect us out there. We can study and observe both in the classroom, but also in the field.
Absolutely.
I want to tell you that journaling is a very important way of capturing information. It helps us do it in a fun and also artistic way.
Well, I heard that Zoe has a journal example right here. May we take a look at your journal, Zoe?
Sure.
Excellent.
Show us what you did, Zoe.
I drew some pictures of some plants I saw,
Very
Beautiful.
nice.
and then I took some leaves too.
Look at that.
Great.
That is great.
Did you use your field guide to look them up?
I have to say that is a hard question.
What else do you have here?
I have a tree, the Texas red oak.
Ooh,
Looks
that's
like
beautiful.
you're an artist. Thank you very
are.
much.
Thank you, Zoe. That's incredible.
So, do you know that some of the most important scientists like John James Audubon, Rachel Carson, and Aldo Leopold were incredible naturalists?
Mm-hmm.
They used journals to capture their thoughts and their ideas. These scientists were practicing natural history, which is observational study in the scientific research of plants and animals. They were awesome. It is very important that we develop our observational skills so that we can be aware of what's going on around us. The basis of all science, Tamberly, is allowing nature to be the one that tells their story. And they help, and nature helps us answer the questions and the hypotheses that we have.
Well, I know you were out there trying to form your hypotheses, and so while you were there, did you find any different characteristics of pollinators?
I'm glad you asked. These guys have some good things they found. So let's ask Allie, what did we find, Allie?
Flies like plants that smell like rotting fish and meat.
Really? Oh. Tyrone.
I learned that moths and like light, and they also like white and yellow flowers, and they like flowers with strong scents.
Very good. Brianna.
Well, bees like flowers that are white, light yellow, and blue that have nectar guides.
Very good. Samantha.
Butterflies are attracted to flowers with wide petals so that they can land. They like bright flowers that are red and purple.
So there you go. Did we learn or did we learn?
Absolutely. Y'all learned some fabulous characteristics, and I think that you are truly scientists. Thank you guys. We appreciate it. All right. Later, pollinators. Now, let's go to Chelsea. Chelsea, can you tell us what you and your student scientists found out there today?
Absolutely, Tamberly. Well, if you remember, the painted ladies were going to be observing the coneflowers, and the busy bees were going to be observing the blue bonnets. Tell me, Daquan, what was the hypothesis?
We thought that the hypothesis was that we attracted more bees than butterflies.
That you were going to attract more bees than butterflies, and what ended up happening?
There ended up to be more bees than butterflies.
Oh, so your data supported your hypothesis. That's awesome. All right, painted ladies, what was your hypothesis with the coneflowers?
We totally thought that there were going to be more butterflies than bees.
More butterflies than bees? Okay, and what happened?
Our data did not support our hypothesis.
It didn't, so you didn't find more butterflies than bees? Well, let's go ahead and take a look at the data that you guys came up with. All right, so we've got, you guys found 30 bees and only 9 butterflies. You saw a few flies and then some others. Were they mostly wasps and things like that?
Yeah.
Okay, well that's okay. You know what? Scientists aren't always right. If we take a look at the sky, we had clear skies, it was warm temperatures, and the type of coneflower has that flat platform, which is a great landing area for pollinators, and we know that butterflies like those bright pinks and purples. But that's why we do these hypotheses. We're not always right, and that's why we need to test it over and over again. All right, guys, what did you guys come up with? This is your data. So you guys found 24 bees and 17 butterflies, so that was a close call in between the two, but your data did support it. Well, that's awesome. Well, we plan on testing this experiment again and again because the data is so close to see what other different and varying results we might get, Tamberly.
Well, I'd say that's some sweet information and some great results, and it's wonderful to see science happening right here with our student scientists. Way to go, painted ladies and busy bees, high fives. Yeah, come on. Way to go, guys. All right, now it's time to get back to our pollinator bee. And for answers to question 3, 67% of you got the answer right. Now, the answer was A, true. Butterflies do prefer flowers with broad petals and landing platforms that are large and showy and also that provide nectar. But as our results showed with Chelsea, the bees enjoy those types of flowers too. But scientists have found through this research that they conduct over and over again that it is a butterfly favorite. So let's go to our last question, and that is, people can help pollinators by A, building nest boxes for native bees, B, planting native plants in your gardens, C, planting nectar and host plants for pollinators, or D, all of the above. Now, you can submit your answers by swarming into that web address on your screen. Now, pollinators are in trouble. Species are declining. The bee is very upset. This program is about nature's partners, not just plants and pollinators, but people too. We can all be a friend to pollinators. Now, we're about to see a video of students from Stephen F. Austin High School in Houston, Texas, and we're going to see what they're doing to help their pollinators. Let's watch.
It's easy to be a friend to pollinators. First, you can create healthy habitat for pollinators. Which habitat will be better for bees, butterflies, and other insects? That's right. Pollinators prefer a garden with fabulous flowers and even fruits and veggies. Gardens can be at schools, homes, parks, and other public places. We're here at the Stephen F. Austin High School Garden in Houston, Texas. This school received a grant from Project Learning Tree during the PollinatorLIVE program to create a welcoming space for butterflies and other pollinators. The students here have done an amazing job of attracting monarch butterflies and other pollinators by planting native plants and vegetables. They harvest the vegetables, use them at the school, and donate them to local food banks. The students and teachers have created a partnership among pollinators, plants, and people. When you plant a garden, think about these principles to help pollinators.
Be native!
Pollinators are best adapted to native plants. These are plants that develop, occur naturally, or existed for many years in a specific area. Native pollinators and native plants have adapted to each other through millions of years of partnership. Plant-pollinator partners exist right in your area or ecoregion. Avoid modern hybrid plants, which often produce less pollen and nectar. It's important to go native. There are lots of resources on the PollinatorLIVE website or at garden centers to help you pick native plants for your area. Pesticides and herbicides kill good bugs as well as so-called bad bugs. You can also use beneficial insects like ladybugs in your garden to help keep the bad bugs away. Some people even use certain plants to attract insects they don't want, which helps keep bad bugs away from the plants that are special to you.
Be a little messy!
Most of our native bee species nest underground, so avoid using heavy mulch and don't worry about being too neat and tidy. Gardens with native plants are usually informal in design, and these gardens are especially attracted to pollinators and people who care about creating healthy habitats.
Be sunny!
Pollinators prefer sun, so provide areas with sunny, bare soil that's dry and well drained, preferably with south-facing slopes.
Be diverse!
Plant a diversity of flowering species with abundant pollen and nectar, as well as specific plants for feeding butterfly and moth caterpillars. For example, milkweed is the host plant for monarch butterflies. Monarchs can only lay their eggs on milkweed, and it's the only plant that the caterpillars can eat. Remember that it's very important to plant milkweed or other nectar-producing plants that are native to your area. Select flowers that bloom throughout the growing season. Plant big patches of each plant so that pollinators can forage or find and eat food more easily.
Be patient.
It takes time for native plants to grow and for pollinators to find your garden, especially if you live far from wildlands.
Be aware!
Check out your surroundings. Observe pollinators when you walk outside. Notice which flowers attract bumblebees or solitary bees and which attract butterflies and other pollinators. Show people your native plant garden and search for pollinators to watch all of the amazing things happening right in your own backyard or schoolyard. While pollinators come in small sizes, they play a large role in our environment and ecosystems.
Thanks, Stephen F. Austin High School students, for those fabulous pollinator tips. You know, pollinators will coexist with people if they have the proper habitat. You can find native plants from your ecoregion and local sources to purchase these plants on our pollinator website. Let's see what they're doing here at the Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center to help pollinators. Flo?
Well, as we mentioned, the most important work we do here is we actually plant native wildflowers. And native wildflowers provide lots of choices, specific host and nectar plants for pollinators, and great habitat.
So Flo, what would be some of the components of habitat? What makes up habitat?
Tamberly, let's ask my buddies from Joslyn Elementary, Han and Jonas. Han, what's a component of habitat?
Food.
And Jonas?
Water.
And things like shelter as well. Those are the elements that any living organism needs to have to do very well. And so planting native plants is not only beautiful, but it's the right thing to do if you want to be a good neighbor to pollinators.
But if you don't have a garden at your school or at your home, there's still so many things that you can do to help pollinators. Number one, you can just be knowledgeable. That helps us to make good environmental choices. Second, you can become a citizen scientist by learning and making observations. PollinatorLIVE has many of those student scientist activities. You can become a citizen science there. You can record data, make observations about bees with Bee Hunt and Bee Spotter, or you can do some activities involving butterflies like Monarch Watch and Monarch Health. You can also participate in citizen science activities that deal with plants, like the Texas Invasive Program. They use that here at the Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center. So get out there, get your journals, and become citizen scientists and make those observations. Third, you can help in community gardens and public spaces. We all need volunteers in all of these different areas. There's so many volunteers today here at the center, and they're helping to create these pollinator habitats. You and your family can help pollinators by volunteering on National Public Lands Day on September 24th. This annual day of service brings out thousands of people who come together and volunteer to care for our public lands. You can remove some of those non-native invasive species that are threatening our natives, or you can plant native species that are friendly to pollinators. To find a work site near you, you can go to the website on your screen for National Public Lands Day. So many things we can do to help pollinators will be there for you. Now, while it's important to help and provide spaces in small areas, it's also important to conserve areas that are very large for pollinators. And that's what we do at the U.S. Forest Service, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the Natural Resources Conservation Service, and other land management agencies. We protect and manage large areas for wildlife and people. Now, you probably have areas right near you that are threatened or need some type of special attention. Here are some aerial images taken in Prince William County, Virginia, which is a fast-growing suburb of Washington, D.C. The first image is from 1989, and in this image you see that it's a large area of farmland. Then you see housing developments being constructed, and by the last image, there are almost all filled with houses. So you can see how it transferred over time. So you lost habitat through this construction. So while it's important for people to have homes, it's also important for wildlife to have homes too. Large areas must be conserved for plants, pollinators, wildlife, and the enjoyment of people. Okay, let's get back to our pollinator bee. Guess what? 85% of you out there got the question right. And the bee is very proud of you, and we're gonna have a high five and a waggle dance. Yeah, all right, way to go. And the correct answer was D, all of the above, because pollinators can use all of those things. They can use nest boxes for native bees. Also, they love more native plants and nectar and host plants too. Thanks for all of your answers out there. We thank you for joining the pollinator bee. So this is the last question, and we hope you enjoyed the pollinator bee. Now, in a few minutes, we're going to be answering your questions live. So buzz in to the email address on your screen and start sending those in. Now, while you send in your questions, we'll be watching the Aztec cultural group, Chicahua. Chicahua helps to connect art, nature, and movement in this educational performance. In this performance, the dancers represent butterflies. In the ancient cultures of both the Aztecs and the Mayans, dances were not just for movement. They conveyed important messages that represented everyday life and displayed beliefs of the community. Elements in the dance demonstrate the symbolism and the philosophies of the community and the culture. In this dance, the monarch butterfly represents soldiers who died in battle and returned to their people during migration. Other butterflies represent sacred fire in the Aztec culture. The ancient peoples dedicated many dances to this small but powerful butterfly, and the important work of pollination is seen in the movements of the dance. Let's watch. spectacular. Thank you, Chikawa, for sharing that incredible ceremonial dance with us today. Now, we're getting lots of questions, and we're going to answer as many as we can today, so continue to send those in to the email address on your screen. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the program, we have a team of scientists out there answering questions by email. So we thank Mr. Smarty Plants here at the Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center. Also the Bug Chicks, Christy Reddick and Jessica Honaker, who are both entomologists. Rob Zier, Shelley Mayer, and Alan Shadow, who are all plant specialists with the Natural Resources Conservation Service. As well, Doug Hooley, who's the National Invasive Species and Pollinator Specialist for the Natural Resources Conservation Service. Dr. Tim Hatton, entomologist and CEO of Invertebrate Ecology. Thank you all, our panelists out there. Okay, so now we're going to answer some questions on site. You've all met Flo Oxley here at the Lady Bird. Also, our farmer, Eddie Garcia, who is actually a soil conservationist with the Natural Resources Conservation Service. As well, you've all met Chelsea Corcoran-Quiet with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and with us is Dr. David Colhavy, aka Dr. Bug, and he's with Stephen F. Austin State University, our forest entomologist there. Now, we have a question from the students from different schools, so let's go with the first one. This one is for Flo.
Okay.
And this is from Mrs. Teeple's class in Lexington Park, Maryland. Question is, do hummingbirds only pollinate flowers, or do they pollinate fruits and vegetables too?
They only pollinate flowers. Now, here's the deal. Once pollination occurs, and if you get fertilization, then you're going to get fruits and vegetables. The whole idea is to transfer pollen from one flower to another so that you can make offspring. And actually, fruits are offspring. Those are the babies.
Excellent. Thank you, Flo. And our next question. Come on in, Angel. Let me see what you got there. Thank you, Angel. Appreciate it. And our next question is for Chelsea. And this is from Squires Elementary in Lexington, Kentucky. Chelsea, can humans pollinate?
Absolutely, Tamberly. Humans can pollinate. In fact, it's been happening more and more often now. I can give you an example. In China, the native pollinators have decreased because of some pesticide use in that area. So they've actually hired people to take literally paintbrushes, and go flower to flower and pollinate. And actually, this is happening at a pear orchard.
That sounds like a lot of hard work, and so it sounds like we need our pollinators
Yes,
even
we
more.
do. Yes.
Yes, thank you, Chelsea. Next question, please. Here we come. All right. Thank you, Jacob and the bee. And this question is for Dr. Bug. This is from Ashley Messner from Salado, Texas, and she would like to know, does honey only come from bees?
Well, that's a really good question. Let's talk about our source of honey. Our domestic bees, which have most of the honey that we produce, are our big producers, and that's where we get most of our honey that we do commercially. There are some other specialized bees that produce honey, but not in a large amount, not in the large quantities that we need. So really, we're really dependent on our domestic bee population. We really need to take care of them. Would you like to help with that, Eddie?
Definitely, the domestic bee population is very important because our producers, our cropland producers, corn and so forth, is dependent on pollinators, and the pollinator population has dwindled somewhat throughout the years because of chemicals and so forth.
Thank you, Dr. Bug and Eddie. And this one's actually for Eddie, and this is from Mr. Hardy and Mrs. DeGenero's class at Wolf Creek School in Oregon. Are flies pollinators?
There are some flies that are pollinators, and earlier you heard me speak about the midges and the coca plant trees that are very important in the tropical ecosystem. So there are some flies that help pollinate fruits and vegetables.
Thank you, Eddie. Next question, please. Thank you so much, Brenda. And this next one is for Dr. Bug again. It's from SJS in McPherson, Kansas. Is it true that in a place in Norway, they store samples of seeds in case bees stop pollinating?
That's a really good question. That is true. We're taking every type of seed in the world and putting it into cold storage, and not just for bees, but it's just for the world population of all our plants to keep them safe for the future. And it's a really neat solution.
It is very important. And next question, please. Thank you, Angel. All right. And this one is for Flo from Chattanooga Girls Leadership Academy in Chattanooga, Tennessee. If plants have female and male parts, why aren't some plants called male and female plants?
Well, actually, they are. Some plants have just male flowers, that is flowers that just have stamen. Other plants and have a separate plant in which the female parts, the pistils, are on that plant. So you do have separate male and female plants.
Thank you, Flo, and thanks to all of you. And thanks out there for all of your great questions, but that's all the time that we have for today. We thank all of our scientists and experts and also our student cast and our amazing audience out there. Now teachers, please fill out the evaluation on our Pollinator Live website because your feedback is very important to us and will help us to improve our future programs. If you send in an evaluation, you'll receive a Bee Basics booklet, a map of national refuges, a map of national forests and grasslands. And for each evaluation that you send in, we'll plant one native nectar plant for monarchs and other pollinators at our Pollinator Live gardens that receive garden grants. Also, we will enter your class into a bucket raffle where 10 classrooms will be randomly selected to receive a garden basket full of educational tools and materials. And that will include Bug Chicks pencils with a cool insect fact, and Woodsy Owl and Smoky Bear goodies, as well as U.S. Fish and Wildlife materials. And lastly, we thank the Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center, this beautiful place, for hosting us here today, as well as all of the amazing Pollinator Live sponsors. And remember, you can always watch these archive videos of Pollinator Live, so keep helping to spread the buzz. Thanks to all of y'all out there for joining us here today. This is Tamberly, buzzing out for Pollinator Live.
Pollinator Live, Pollinator Live. Bees, bats, moths, birds, flies, and beetles. Bees, bats, moths, birds, flies, and beetles. Pollinator Live. Honeybees buzzing around the flowers, around the flowers. Honeybees buzzing around the flowers, around the flowers. Pollinator Live. Do the waggle dance, beeline to the flowers, beeline to the flowers. Do the waggle dance, beeline to the flowers, beeline to the flowers. Pollinator Live. Do the trimble dance, workers collect nectar, workers collect nectar. Do the trimble dance, workers collect nectar, workers collect nectar. Pollinator Live.